why I didn't go for a Honda NX500. Real simple answer, mate. Wasn't off-road capable enough. It's got cast wheels, not enough travel in the suspension. It's definitely an adventure tourer rather than a 50-50 adventure bike. It really hasn't had much thought put into it for the off-road sections. It's really just a road bike that's been designed to go off-road a little bit. G'day guys, welcome back to another Q&A. It's time to see how the community's doing and what's on your mind. Firstly, I wanted to say a big thanks for all the positive response on the Himalayan 450. Haven't come up with a name with it yet, so if you've got any great suggestions, chuck them down below. Secondly, I've changed the logo and updated and given it a bit of a refresh. Love to know your thoughts on that as well. And with that little ramble done, let's get straight into the questions and comments. How's the throttle response on the Himalayan 450 behind me compared to the 450 MT? As I spoke about ad nauseum in both of my reviews of the bikes and the comparison of this bike, so check those out for finer details. The Himalayan behind me is butter smooth, absolutely no problems with a snatchy throttle. So one of the reasons I like the bike so much is in the modern day, it's really hard to find a bike that doesn't have a snatchy throttle. The Himalayan is one of them, so very easygoing, great if you're a beginner or snatchy throttles annoy you. But as I talked about in my comparison and review of the MT450, there is a map update for you. If you're not in Europe, you can get that map. And I had the bike with that map on it, and I can tell you it was very smooth and that I had no problems. If you're in Europe, you're up crap creek without a paddle, so there's not much you can do about it. But if you're in the rest of the world, you can just update the fuel map through CFMoto's app and it's good to go. So food for thought there, but straight out of the box, the Himalayan wins. It does not have a snatchy throttle. On a non-bike related subject, what did you use to seal the bottom of the walls on your shed? It looks great, by the way. Thanks very much, mate. So it was a combination of rodent flashing or vermin flashing, as it's often called. It's basically a piece of metal that slots in nicely to the grooves of the shed, specifically made for the purpose to keep the insects and the bugs out. To fix it into place, I used liquid nails, as was recommended by the shed company and the installers. And then on top of that, you will have gaps because it's not 100% perfect fit. So I just went with a good old trusty weatherproof sealant, silicone. Nothing flash, just translucent, so it doesn't really show up to the eye. And that keeps everything absolutely foolproof, sealed and tight. Might not be the most professional and best looking job, but it gets the job done, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. Which bike would I recommend between the bike behind me, the Himalayan 450, and CFMoto's 450 MT? What I would highlight at the beginning of this question is that both bikes are fantastic beginner bikes. It's one of the reasons they're so popular. But what I will say is there's a caveat to both of these bikes being great as beginner bikes. If you're not intending to do serious off-road, so just gravel roads, maybe something a little more technical, both of these bikes are going to be great bikes. If you're wanting to get serious off-road and really go deep into the bush or off the tracks and do some more complicated stuff, I would forget about a small adventure bike and go straight for a dual sport, something that you can pick up easily, a CRF300L, KLX300, DR650, DRZ400 or the DRZ4S. There's a whole pile to choose from. Go as light as possible if you're riding off-road in a proper way. But in saying that, a lot of us don't have that kind of lifestyle. We're either doing just easy dirt roads. Maybe we live in a very urban environment in Europe where there isn't much opportunity to get off-road in a serious way. Or maybe you're just like me, time poor and exhausted, and you can't really do too much of the hardcore stuff anymore. You want something that is fairly capable just in case that you do encounter that and you need to get through, but is also great out on the open road and as a day-to-day commuter. So in that context, which of these two bikes is the better for the learner? As I said, both fantastic options. It really is hard to decide between them both. Neither of these bikes will do you wrong as your first motorcycle. But in saying that, my gut instinct here is that the Himalayan is a little more user-friendly straight out of the box. As I talked about in that previous question, it doesn't have as snatchy throttle straight out of the box, so it's much easier to get along with. Its power delivery down low is also much more docile. Neither of the bikes are going to overwhelm you with power, but if you're just starting out, it's probably enough power to intimidate you a little bit. And the way the 450 Himalayan delivers its power is much smoother and much more gentle in the lower RPM. So I think for a very fresh, absolutely knowing nothing about motorcycles beginner, the Himalayan probably has the slight edge. But as I said, both very comparable bikes, both really good for learners. Just be aware that they're going to be heavy when you pick them up, when you drop them off road, which will happen. That should probably start you thinking as to, should you be choosing a small adventure bike or should you be going for a lighter dual sport? Have a think about that as well. The other thing on top of that is straight out of the box, the Himalayan is a little bit better personally, in my opinion, for a beginner because you get the stock crash bars straight out of the box as well, don't have to pay extra. You get the center stand as well, which also helps with basic maintenance. The downside, I would say, of the Himalayan for a real beginner would be the kickstand is quite short. So it could be a little disconcerting to you when you tip the bike over to put it on its kickstand. It does lean an awful way over. But I can assure you, day to day, once you get used to it, it's not a problem. That's some food for thought there, mate. What would be my first bike choice? CRF300, Caballero 500, or Triumph 400X? Well, I'd be asking myself what I'm trying to achieve with the motorcycle because that's quite a different group of bikes. You've got two scramblers and then you've got a full-on dual sport, and they're good at very different things. I would say if you're looking for a heavy commuter day-to-day bike and just riding around in town with a little bit of dirt sprinkled in but nothing crazy, definitely go for the Triumph 400X. I had an absolute blast on mine. I think it's one of the best value everyday motorcycles available on the market. It really is an engaging little bike to ride. The Caballero 500, I've only ridden the rally version, so that's the most off-road capable version. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. Really liked the bike. What you've got to ask yourself is how many dealerships are close to you, how easy are parts going to be. It's a lot of fun, but I found the power delivery really engaging, but I did think to myself, if I was a brand new rider, this is my first bike, it could be a little bit to handle as well. But if you're really wanting something with some Italian flair, a point of difference to really stand out, and as new riders looking for your first bike, that's kind of a high priority in your younger days, the Caballero 500 really stands out. It really looks different and it looks great. Even up close, it's very well put together. But I don't think it would be the best of the bunch for a learner bike, particularly compared to the 400X. I think the 400X, you've just got more dealerships, it's a better, well-rounded motorcycle, and parts are going to be much easier to get your hands on. Now we come to the 300L. I think just out of all of the bikes, it might be the best suited for a learner, given you're not too short, just because it's 286 cc's and it makes under 30 horsepower. So it's really an easy bike to get along with just because it's just so docile. The other reason I would pick this up over the bunch is if you're getting off-road properly. I'm not talking about graded dirt roads that you could get a Toyota Camry down. I'm talking about proper off-road rides that are really going to challenge you. You're going to be coming off a bit and you're going to be needing a lot of ground clearance and durability and utility. The 300L is hard not to look at because it basically is top of the pile for affordable dual sports in the modern era. So if that's what you're after, a proper off-road motorcycle, get the 300L because the other two cannot compete in any way, shape or form. But they're scramblers, they're not supposed to. They're supposed to look pretty, do a great job at the day-to-day commuting, as well as having a teensy bit of off-road capability. So have a think about that. If you're going off-road properly, get the 300L. If you're a madman and you just want the pantomime of the experience and the looks, and you're not worried about dealership experience and the ease of parts, Caballero could be an interesting way to go. But if you're really set on a scrambler, I think the Triumph 400X is definitely the way to go. Plenty of dealerships, plenty of parts, looks great, sounds great, and a lot of fun to ride. Hey, what hardware do you use for your editing, please? Well, I use this here. It's a MacBook Pro M1. It's enough to get the job done. Admittedly, it's getting a little slow these days, but unfortunately, I don't have $6,000 or $7,000 squirreled away to afford a new one at the moment. That's all going to the driveway. That's happening at the end of the month. But if you mean software rather than hardware, I use DaVinci Resolve for all of my editing. Hi Solid, how you doing, mate? Really enjoying your content, Dadventure. Absolutely spot on. It seems like the Honda CRF300s are out of the picture now. Is this an observation of yours, or based on you've been there and done that? Okay, so I think you're getting at the point, have I identified that the market is moving away from dual sports and I wanted to catch the wave of the small adventure bike? Absolutely not. That's not how it played out for me. As I spoke about in the video of why I sold the CRF300L, it was a culmination of things, but basically a massive change in lifestyle and just the stage of life I'm moving into. So I've firmly moved out of my young man stage, no kids, not too much tying me down and plenty of time to myself, into the extremely tired, extremely time poor, and don't have the energy to do the stuff that I used to be able to do stage in my life. As you can see, the dad bod is coming on strong. That's why I called it my dad venture bike. So a few things came into this. One is absolutely right, with the kid around now, I'm focused on family as my first priority. So I'm not riding as much as I used to, nor am I willing to take the same amount of risks. Two, I rarely get enough time to do a proper full day in the dirt anyway. And three, if something should happen to me, I do not want to be far, far away. On top of that, all the friends that I used to ride with that you saw in my old off-road videos, all the mates where we did do the harder stuff, the goat trails, all the stuff I still love the most to do. One of their friends had a very serious accident and it was a big deal, and it frightened a lot of them and it made them have a long think about what they wanted to do. So they've hung up their riding leathers. I completely understand why, and it's their decision to make. So that has also factored into it. I don't like doing the more difficult stuff as a solo rider, because here in Australia, if you mess up out in the bush, it can be life-threatening in a very short amount of time. I've been in those situations and I've just been very thankful that I've been with a group of guys who know how to work together to problem solve and get everyone out. And realistically, even if those guys were still riding and going on rides, I would find it very hard to participate just because my schedule is just all over the place, because I never know when the little one is going to bring back a fresh new disease from daycare or have some other issue. Like last night, I was up all night. I'm operating on a couple of hours sleep right now, and you just never kind of see that stuff coming. So my schedule is all upside down, so it's really hard to plan stuff with other people. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll see you in the next one.